Hello Foods 2. We're halfway through the week. We're almost done with this online learning, so hopefully we can all see each other again next week and meet in class. Today we're going to talk about health concerns and the diseases that are related to nutrition. Now, some of them can be prevented and some of them are based on genetics, but your diet a lot of times can help you control getting those diseases, or if you do have them, can control how you maintain and stay healthy. So we're going to start first with diabetes. Now, diabetes is technically hyperglycemia. That means that your blood glucose or your sugar levels are too high. And that happens because you're either not making any insulin in some cases, or your body isn't using the insulin that you make, and it's not telling your body what to do with that sugar. All right, so insulin is a hormone that uses or it helps you store the glucose in your blood stream. Now, there are three types of diabetes. Type 1 used to be called juvenile onset because they thought that to have type 1, you got it when you were a young child or a teenager. But really, type 1 can happen at any age. So we're trying to get away from calling it juvenile onset and just calling it type 1. In this case, your body is not making any insulin. So you either have to take it through shots, or you might have a pump where insulin is just pumped into your body, and that way you're not poking yourself 2-3 times a day. Type 2 is usually because of being overweight. And so you can control this through diet. If it's not controlled through diet, then your doctor will put you on pills to help control it. In this case, your body is making insulin. But it's not making enough insulin, or your cells are compromised and it doesn't know what to do with the glucose. And then there's a third type, and that's gestational. This is only during pregnancy. They test every pregnant woman at about 20 weeks to see if they are diabetic for pregnancy. They control it the same way a type 2 controls it during the pregnancy. They try and control their diet. They may have to be on medication, but usually once they deliver the baby, the diabetes goes away. Now, they are at risk for type 2, again, because it's tied to an unhealthy body weight, and the baby's also more likely to have type 2 diabetes as they grow up. So keep in mind those three different types of diabetes. Now, symptoms are frequent thirst and urination. All right, so this is the body's kind of way of saying, hey, there's something wrong here. You need to dilute some of this sugar. And so they're always thirsty because their body's trying to say, there's something wrong, you need to dilute this. There's too much sugar in this bloodstream. Same thing with the urination. The body's trying to say, hey, there's something wrong here. Let's get rid of all of this extra sugar. And in fact, that's how they used to diagnose diabetes in the olden days. Your doctor would taste your pee. And if it tasted sweet, they would say, you have the sugar sickness, because it meant that there was too much sugar in your body. I know it sounds kind of gross, but that's how they used to diagnose it. They also crave sweets, which sounds kind of counterproductive because they have too much sugar, but it's not going anywhere. And so their body thinks that they're starving, right? And so they crave sweets. And then there's unexplained weight loss. Again, because the energy from the sugar isn't going anywhere, and so they lose weight. All right, now, there's no way to prevent type 1. All right, and you can't give yourself type 1 diabetes. All right, it's strictly a genetic thing. All right, and it can happen at any age. It's not just during childhood. For type 2 and gestational, a healthy weight will help prevent those two. Now, the treatment. Type 1 has to take insulin because their body is not making any. Type 2 and gestational, they want them to manage their carbohydrates and then try and lose weight. Same thing with gestational. So the key nutrient is carbohydrates. And even a type 1 diabetic, type 2 gestational, they need to keep those simple carbohydrates to a minimum because a simple carb spikes your blood sugar faster than a complex carb. So simple carbs are things like candy and soda, juice, fruits, or simple carbs. Your body converts that really fast and it causes your blood sugar to spike. So you need to watch those. All right, our next disease is heart disease. This is the leading cause of death in the United States. All right, and what it is that plaque is deposited on the walls of the arteries, and then the plaque hardens the arteries. All right, so we're going to look at this picture. Up at the top, you can see this is a healthy, normal artery. There's no blockage, nothing's building up, and so the blood can flow through normally. All right, as we get older, or we have a diet high in fat and cholesterol, we get this buildup, and as it keeps building up, then we get plaque, and that plaque narrows the artery so that the blood can't flow through. All right, and your heart has to work harder to get that blood through. That's what causes that's what high blood pressure is. Your body or your heart is working too hard to get the blood through this narrowed opening. Now, symptoms are high blood pressure, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't even realize that they have heart disease until they have a heart attack or stroke. So a heart attack is when this artery that leads anywhere in your lower part of your body gets completely blocked off and blood can't get there. All right, so that's a heart attack. If it's an artery that goes to your brain and it's completely blocked off, then that's a stroke. All right, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that they have plaque or this condition until they have a heart attack or stroke. How we prevent it is a low-fat diet, a low-salt diet. Some people are more susceptible to salt causing high blood pressure, so they put them on a low-salt diet. And then eat fiber and exercise. So risk factors are genetics. Typically, if your parents have heart disease or high blood pressure, you're more likely to get it. Age, older Americans have heart disease just because they're old and we kind of have bad, horrible diets in America. High fat diet, if you smoke, and then low fiber diets all kind of contribute to heart disease. All right, so our key nutrient is low fat and then low cholesterol. Now your body makes your own cholesterol. It makes all the cholesterol you need. But it is also in some foods like egg yolks. And so a lot of time people will just eat egg whites instead of the egg yolk if they're trying to watch their cholesterol. All right, next up is anemia. So we have low iron, and that results in low hemoglobin. Hemoglobin are your red blood cells. So because you don't have enough red blood cells, oxygen is not carried through your body. So here we have a little like blood sample and a picture of a normal red blood cell count. And then here's anemia. You can tell there's just not enough. Oxygen is carried on those red blood cells, and so there's just not enough to get through the body. So the symptoms, pale, cold, especially hands and feet are always really cold. Tired, mental confusion, because oxygen's not getting through your brain, so you seem like you're confused. The prevention and the cure is to eat more iron. It's a pretty easy one to fix, and so if you just add more iron. All right, and then the risk factor is women, especially women who are still menstruating. All right, and it's not unusual for most women, especially teenage girls, to go through a period of anemia because they are menstruating and they don't eat a lot of foods with iron. So the foods with iron are leafy greens like spinach and kale, dark greens, and then red meat. So like steak, hamburger, things like that. All right, next up is colon and rectal cancer. This is one of the top cancer deaths in the United States. And it used to just affect males, but unfortunately, it's affecting both genders with the same rate. So what it is that frequent constipation causes polyps. Think of those polyps as like sores. And if those aren't removed, they lead to cancer. So the symptoms are bloody stool. And yes, that's bloody poop. All right, like bright red blood in the toilet as you go to the bathroom. And then abdominal pain. Now, unfortunately, not every colon cancer victim has those symptoms. And it is a hard one to diagnose because you don't get those symptoms until it's almost too late. So how you prevent it is fiber. You need at least 20 grams a day, at least. The FDA and the USDA recommend 25 to 35. The average American gets like 12 to 13 grams a day. We don't get enough fiber in our diet, and it's one of the reasons why people have colon and rectal cancer at the rates that they do. So treatment, if you do have it, is chemotherapy or a colectomy. A colectomy is where they remove sections of your colon to get rid of the cancer. All right, so just eat fiber, guys, 25 to 35 grams. We get it from whole grains, so brown rice, whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, and then fruits and vegetables, especially the skin or the peels, like potato peels, apple peels, they have lots of fiber. Celery has lots of fiber, so get more fiber. All right, next up is osteoporosis, and this is a lack of calcium that causes bones to become fragile and porous. So if you look over here, your bones kind of are like a hard sponge. Like, it does have holes in it, but if you have osteoporosis, those pores or those holes are much more pronounced. All right, and because they're much more pronounced and it's not dense, it is more likely to break. So you hear a lot of times, like, the old ladies in your neighborhood will fall and break their hip. Really what happened is their hip broke and then they fell because their bones are so fragile that it can't support their body weight. All right, so the symptoms are broken bones, a stooped posture, or a curved spine. So when you see those little old ladies shuffling around the grocery store and their backs are all hunched over, they have osteoporosis. Their bones are so fragile that they can't hold themselves upright. The prevention and the cure is calcium. Vitamin D. If you're taking calcium, you have to take vitamin D. Vitamin D is kind of like the key that unlocks calcium and tells your body what to do with it. If you're just taking plain old calcium, your body doesn't know what to do. You have to include that vitamin D, which is why they add it to milk. And then weight-bearing exercises. So just using like some little weights, little tiny barbells, ankle weights will help keep those bones strong. The risk factor is women. Men do get osteoporosis, but typically it's because they've used steroids in their younger years. So guys, don't use steroids. All right, you're risking osteoporosis. All right, so our key nutrient is calcium and vitamin D, and we mainly get those from dairy foods like milk, yogurt, and cheese. All right, our last health condition is obesity. So the definition and the symptom is excessive body fat. The contributing factors are poor diet, a lack of exercise, and genetics. So how we prevent it or cure it is balance calorie intake with output. And that's why when you do, like when you evaluate your diet in Foods 1, it asks you how active you were. Because if you're not very active, you need less calories because your calories in need to equal how many calories you're putting out. Eat nutrient-dense foods. So those are those foods that have a lot of vitamins and minerals and little calories, under 200. And then increase physical activity. Now, there are some complications with obesity, like type 2 diabetes or gestational diabetes if you're pregnant, heart disease, certain cancers, high blood pressure, stroke, and breathing problems. So it's important to balance your calories, your intake with your output. All right, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. There will be a short assignment for Purple Day on Friday, so make sure you get on there and get on Canvas and complete it. And have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.